The secret behind the mystical melody that scattered Sima Yi's army of 150,000. A single tune on the zither, and 150,000 elite troops retreat without a fight. A true strategist needs no sword, only the mind to move heaven and earth. Have you ever heard the story of how Zhuge Liang merely sat and played the zither, causing Sima Yi to retreat his entire army? It sounds like legend, doesn't it? But what lay behind that melody? Was it a clever ruse, sheer intelligence, or perhaps a silent message to his greatest rival? In today's video, we'll peel back the mystery behind the empty city stratagem and the haunting melody played in Western City, where Kongming staged a life-or-death chess game, balancing illusion and reality to deliver one of history's deepest lessons. But that's not all. We'll also decode 5 legendary quotes from Sima Yi, Zhuge Liang's greatest rival, to understand how this man laid the foundation for an entire dynasty. If you love history, are fascinated by the 3 kingdoms, and want to tap into ancient wisdom to apply in today's world, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our powerful stories. Now, come with me back to Western City that fateful year, where a melody echoed and history took a different path. There's an old saying, the human heart is like water, seemingly clear but murky at the bottom. A man's talent is like a sword, seemingly sharp, but only when drawn do you know if it's chipped. In Zhuge Liang's first northern campaign, a brilliant move by the most cunning strategist of the 3 kingdoms, a tragedy occurred that not only broke the momentum of the war, but left behind a painful lesson about the fatal flaw in leadership: misjudging people. After years of building strength in the western riverlands, Zhuge Liang, Prime Minister of Shu Han, finally launched a campaign to the north, aiming to support the Han and defeat Wei, fulfilling the lifelong dream entrusted to him by Liu Bei. The first northern expedition began with immense momentum. The Shu army claimed one victory after another, capturing Mahjong, a key pillar of Wei, and recruiting the famed General Zhang Wei. Each battle was a thunderous blow against the northern fortresses, catching Wei off guard and on the back foot. But just when victory seemed within reach, disaster struck from a small crack in the chain, one that would prove to be a devastating vulnerability in the art of war: the human heart. At Xin City, a crucial outpost near the border between Shu and Wei, there was a general named Meng Da. Once a subordinate of Liu Bei, he defected to Cao Wei and later switched sides again to serve Shu. Meng Da was the very embodiment of talent without virtue. Feeling neglected and attacked by court factions, resentment grew within him. He plotted to betray Shu, conspiring with Wei to open the gates of Xin City. The news hit Zhuge Liang's camp like a dagger. He understood all too well. If Meng Da rebelled, it would be as if a spear had pierced the flank of his advancing army. The threat of encirclement and a cut-off retreat was imminent. Sima Yi, a veteran general of Wei, was immediately dispatched by the court to crush the rebellion, eliminate Meng Da, and then swiftly maneuver through the narrow mountain pass of Ting Slope to ambush Shu from the rear. The Ding Slope path, though narrow and small, was the lifeline, the vital artery transporting the supplies for the northern campaign. Losing this route would be like clipping the wings of the Shu army. Once provisions ran dry, morale would collapse, and the troops would fall apart. Zhuge Liang knew this position had to be guarded by someone bold, deeply versed in warfare, and willing to hold the line at all costs, even to the death. But the entire camp held its breath when the man appointed to defend it was none other than Ma Su. Ma Su, a passionate young general, well known for his mastery of military theory and fondness for war texts. Yet reading strategy books and commanding troops on the battlefield were 2 very different things. Under Zhuge Liang's command at the time were seasoned veterans like Wei Yan, Zhao Yun, and Zhang Bao. And yet, the Prime Minister placed the most critical mission into the hands of someone who had never truly led soldiers into real battle. The entire camp was shaken. Many tried to persuade him otherwise, but Ma Su appeared before Zhuge Liang in the dead of night, kneeling and weeping, begging for the opportunity to prove himself. He swore that if he failed, his entire family would accept the punishment. In that moment, Zhuge Liang chose to believe in youthful ideals, in talent and ambition, something even modern leaders can often fall for. He believed that education equaled competence, that oaths equaled loyalty, and that tears equaled responsibility. But he forgot one truth. Strategy exists to be executed, not recited. Battle is about survival, not self-expression. And so the Shu army split their forces. Veteran General Wang Ping was sent to hold the flank, while Ma Su was allowed to choose the location of the main camp. That's when tragedy began, with Ma Su's own decision. Defying strict military orders, he refused to encamp along the main road guarding the supplies. Instead, he led his troops to a high mountaintop, believing that overlooking the plains like a dragon gave him a defensive advantage. But he failed to grasp a basic military principle. Camping atop a mountain means cutting off access to water, slowing reinforcements, and making retreat difficult. In warfare, mountains are fit for guerrilla fighters or hidden forces, not for large encampments. Sima Yi, an old master of cunning, saw through Ma Su's misstep instantly. With a single move, he surrounded the mountain, cut off the water source, and burned the retreat paths. Ma Su crumbled. The Shu army broke apart. Supplies were cut, morale shattered. Though Wang Ping fought valiantly to hold the line, the formation had collapsed. Ma Su fled, and his failure triggered the total collapse of the northern campaign. Zhuge Liang was forced to withdraw his forces back to Hanzhong, his heart in anguish. Only then did he realize, misplaced trust is a double-edged sword. Before it strikes the enemy, it may first wound you. Zhuge Liang immediately ordered Ma Su's execution, despite his deep affection for him, treating him almost like a son. But military law knows no kinship. A single wrong move had placed the campaign and his men in grave danger. Now came the reckoning. That tear Zhuge Liang shed on the night of the execution wasn't just the sorrow of a teacher losing his student, but the sigh of a genius who once believed that talent and loyalty alone could turn the tide of war. But life is never that simple. There's a powerful ancient saying, true courage is like still water, facing enemies as if facing one's own shadow. In other words, the truly brave do not roar like thunder. They remain calm like an autumn lake even amidst a raging storm, silent, yet deep, still, yet majestic. Throughout the long chronicle of the Three Kingdoms, there has never been a battle without combat, without bloodshed, that forced tens of thousands of enemy troops to retreat in fear, except for the extraordinary encounter at Western City. It was there that Zhuge Liang used presence, wisdom, and melody to play a game of life and death, with fate, and won. After Ma Su's disastrous defeat at Jieting, with supply lines cut off, the Shu army was pushed into crisis. Zhuge Liang's main forces had already retreated, leaving him behind in Western City, a small, vulnerable county, to handle the remaining provisions. But then, news arrived like a thunderclap. Sima Yi, the great general of Wei, was marching with 150,000 troops, closing in rapidly. At that moment, there were barely 2,000 men left in Western City, most of them old, wounded, or civilians. Their weapons were rusty, their strength exhausted, the city defenses unprepared, and morale shattered from the earlier loss. In such a situation, to flee was death, but to fight was unthinkable. In this hopeless setting, Zhuge Liang did not panic. He neither ran nor ordered a defense. Instead, he did the unthinkable. He opened the city gates wide. He commanded his soldiers to hide their weapons, wear civilian clothes, and pretend to be ordinary townsfolk sweeping the streets or walking cattle as if nothing were amiss. Then, alone, he ascended the tower, lit incense, and began to play the zither, soft as the wind, deep as the ocean. One man, one instrument, one composed soul, facing 150,000 men. When Sima Yi's army arrived, dust rising, the earth trembling, he halted his horse at the city walls. There he saw Zhuge Liang, calmly stroking his beard, eyes half closed, playing the zither with serene grace. No arrows, no guards, no traps in sight, only music, ethereal, yet like a deadly undercurrent beneath calm waters. Sima Yi was shaken. A master of cunning and schemes, who had clashed with Kong Ming on many fronts, he knew one thing: Zhuge Liang was never reckless. A man this meticulous, who treated caution as the spine of all strategy, now sat relaxed and exposed. Was it an ambush, a lure into a grand trap, Or was it a mind game so vast it defied comprehension? No one knew, but Zhuge Liang's terrifying composure, combined with the haunting melody, sent waves of doubt through Sima Yi's mind. The music touched something deep within him. His heart trembled. His mind clouded. He gave the order. Retreat. Within hours, Western City was safe. No blood spilled. No arrows launched. But to later generations, that victory echoed like thunder in the night. That chess move was immortalized as the empty fort strategy, a tactic that can only be used when one has transcended life and death and sees clearly both the human heart and the workings of heaven. So the question remains, why did Zhuge Liang dare to do such a thing? Was he insane? No. Was he desperate? Even less so. He simply understood one truth. In utter crisis, there remains only one path, to gamble with heaven, but not with swords or shields, with spirit, with wisdom, with presence. Zhuge Liang once said, "A general when weak must be like water. Only when strong should he be like fire." In a moment of ruin, he chose neither defense, because there was nothing left to defend, nor retreat, because escape was impossible. Instead, he sowed doubt in his enemy's mind. His stillness was the hidden blade in a bed of flowers, an unspoken strategy that turned fear inward on the enemy, causing them to defeat themselves. But on a deeper level, Zhuge Liang's melody was more than just a ruse. It was a silent dialogue with destiny itself. In the ancient musical philosophy of the East, it is said, when the heart is calm, the music is harmonious. When the heart is chaotic, the sound becomes disordered. Our Zhuge Liang sat there playing not with his fingers, but with the clarity of the heavens within his heart, utterly free from fear. He conveyed his will through every string of the zither, so that the heavens would know, the earth would know, all people would feel it, even his enemies. Sima Yi, a master strategist himself, understood this. He said to his son, "That music is not from a man who has lost hope. It is the sound of someone chosen by heaven." And heaven did help, but not through miracles. It helped through the awe Zhuge Liang instilled in his enemies, an awe not born from brute force, but from the magnitude of his mind and his poise amidst chaos. A man who fears not death cannot be conquered. A man with nothing left to lose, yet still composed and unshaken. How can one dare to underestimate him? Sima Yi knew, if there were ambushes inside the city, entering would mean certain death. But if there were no traps and he still entered, then it would be arrogance that destroyed reason. So, he chose to retreat. The empty fort strategy wasn't just a brilliant military tactic. It became a monument to Eastern wisdom. It teaches us this: when every door is closed, the only one left is the door within. When you have nothing left to fight with your spirit. When the enemy is 100 times stronger, don't resist with force. Reach their soul with the strength of your stillness. In today's world, how often do we find ourselves in the same desperate position as Zhuge Liang at Western City? Cornered by failure, alone, stripped of resources, plans falling apart, everything collapsing. But in that moment, if we can keep our hearts still, we still have a path forward. We may not need a city gate, but we all need a melody of our own, a stillness amidst the storm, a courage that refuses to surrender, a wisdom that causes even enemies to doubt their victory. And sometimes, at the very moment when heaven offers no way, it's then that we discover a path we never saw before. In the end, the empty fort strategy is not merely a lesson in warfare, it's a message from the ancients, passed down through time. When you can face death without trembling, death itself must retreat. That is why, after thousands of years, the world still bows before Zhuge Liang, not only for his genius, but because he dared to face fate with a melody. Sima Yi was a brilliant man, skilled in strategy, patience, and adaptation. But the more capable he became, the more favored he was by the emperor. The more dangerous he became in the eyes of court officials and royal kin. Zhuge Liang knew a man like Sima Yi, after stabilizing the Wei state, would cast too long a shadow for the throne to sleep peacefully. It had happened before. Han Xin, who helped Liu Bang establish the Han dynasty, was executed once the empire was secure. Fan Li, after helping the Yue king conquer Wu, chose exile to save his life. Many legendary generals didn't die by enemy blades, but by imperial suspicion. In that melody, Zhuge Liang was warning Sima Yi of such a future. No one can save a loyal servant once he becomes a threat to the crown. There's only one path to survival. Step behind the curtain, hide your strength, and pass down your legacy wisely, without struggle, without contention. In other words, Zhuge Liang was teaching Sima Yi how to survive beyond his great deeds. And indeed, Sima Yi listened. After the retreat from Western City, he became less obsessed with conquest. He began to plan long-term, to act more patiently. He understood that to truly unify the realm, he couldn't remain a general forever. He had to become a builder of power for his descendants. That melody reshaped his identity. And because of that, the Sima clan would eventually replace the Wei dynasty and establish the Western Jin dynasty, a regime born not through bloodshed, but through insight into history and heaven's will. The greatest depth of Zhuge Liang's Zither lay not in its sharpness, not in vengeance. It taught no hatred, no revenge, only release. Kongming never wished for Sima Yi's death. He didn't want the Wei army shattered. He only wanted everyone to understand. Winning the world is hard, but holding heaven's mandate is harder. And a wise man knows when to stop. That melody was a bell of awakening, the sigh of a man whose time was nearly up, but whose message could not yet be fully spoken. If you look closely, after the Western City Zither performance, Zhuge Liang never played another melody as legendary. That was the final piece, a farewell not just to a battle, but to an entire age of heroes. It was the last harmony between two minds, one nearing death, the other just reborn. Not everyone could understand that melody. Had it been Cao Cao, he might have stormed the city. Had it been Sun Quan, he might have hesitated in doubt. But Sima Yi, who had once endured humiliation without breaking, once been imprisoned, yet remained patient, understood. And because he understood, he survived. And because he survived, he secured a legacy for generations to come. There's an old saying, helping a king build a nation is easy. Surviving after it's built, that's the hardest part. It may sound like a jest, but when you reflect on the fates of founding heroes throughout history, it appears as a cruel, chilling law of power. In that melody that echoed through Western City, Zhuge Liang wasn't merely confusing the enemy or revealing heaven's will. He was silently warning Sima Yi and the entire world about the terrible price that comes with achieving greatness. It's the invisible sentence that hangs above the heads of those who once held real power, once led armies, once were hailed as pillars of an era. Among them, Han Xin, founding general of the Han dynasty, was a tragic example Zhuge Liang could not forget, even if only through a song. Han Xin, the god who a king could not command, vassals could not control, and the world could not ignore. His name shook the lands through his campaigns against Zhao, Qi, and Chu, his talent unmatched. But in the end, he died in disgrace, lured into the palace, bound and executed. Why? Because his brilliance, his contributions, were too great. They made Liu Bang and Empress Lu deeply uneasy. Did Han Xin err in his loyalty to the Han? No, but he erred by not stepping back when he should have, by not hiding from the spotlight, by not realizing that behind every shining light lurks a shadow, and that after great achievement comes even greater danger. Zhuge Liang, who once dreamed of reviving the Han with Shu, understood this more than anyone. In that melody, he was echoing Han Xin's mournful cry, offering a haunting warning. Be careful, Sima Yi, for you are walking Han Xin's path. Yet Zhuge Liang didn't stop with Han Xin. In the same melody lay the shadow of Fan Li, trusted strategist of King Gujian of Yue. He endured hardship and humiliation, plotted like the ocean's depths, and helped Yue destroy the Wu kingdom. But once Yue rose again, Fan Li did not wait to be suspected. He vanished, choosing a life of quiet, of simplicity, to preserve not just himself, but the dignity of a man who shaped history. Fan Li was Han Xin's opposite. He knew when to advance and when to retreat. He understood that great deeds should be left for posterity to praise, not clung to by staying in court every day. Zhuge Liang, in his heart, admired Fan Li, and he hoped that Sima Yi, now entering the final arc of his career, would choose a wise path not just to survive, but to build something lasting for the future. Looking back at history, how many great generals and wise men, after helping unify empires, died at the hands of those they once served? Wenzhong of the Shang dynasty, utterly loyal to King Zhou, was still distrusted. Nguyen Van Tan, who helped Zhuge Liang unify Vietnam, also met a tragic end. These men, though loyal and talented, never understood the final truth of greatness. It's not just about knowing how to rise, but knowing when to step down. Zhuge Liang, who served Liu Bei and the later Lord Liu Shan with unyielding loyalty, never once crossed the line of ambition. He never held the imperial seal, never carved out fame for himself, never built factions. He kept himself pure because he knew, to survive as a statesman, one must embrace namelessness. To be a true strategist, one must know when to retreat in silence. Thus, the melody in Western City was not just a tactic to scare Sima Yi into retreat. It was a wake-up call reserved for someone wise enough, patient enough, and sharp enough to hear it. And Sima Yi, despite being known for his suspicion and ruthlessness, proved he understood. He withdrew from Western City not merely out of fear of an ambush, but because he heard the message hidden in the strings, and it resonated. After Western City, Sima Yi changed. He no longer threw himself into battles, nor obsessed over political confrontation. Instead, he focused on building influence for his descendants, quietly consolidating power. He endured Empress Dowager Guo, tolerated the court ministers, and even faked illness, feigned deafness, to avoid drawing suspicion. He didn't do it out of fear. He did it because he fully understood what Zhuge Liang had conveyed in that melody beneath the city walls. To leave a legacy for future generations, a general must know how to disappear, at the right moment, in the right way. That isn't retreat, it's the art of survival. And because of that, the Sima family was not purged after their success. They rose higher, establishing the Western Jin dynasty and unifying the realm. A result that, without that awakening through music at Western City, might have followed the tragic paths of Han Xin, Wenzhong, or Nguyen Van Tan. Zhuge Liang did not live to see the fall of Shu, but he lived long enough to send a final message, not to Liu Shan nor to the people of Shu, but to the man standing opposite him on the battlefield. A man like Sima Yi, had he pursued victory recklessly like Ma Chao, Chao Ren, or Zhang Liao, would have died like them. Only when he was wise enough to understand the melody, humble enough to accept a lesson from his enemy, could he become the final victor, without spilling blood. And that is what we must reflect on. In today's world, everyone is racing, chasing glory, chasing recognition, chasing legacy. But how many ask, after achieving greatness, where will I go? When the spotlight shines on me, will I be consumed by its very light? Zhuge Liang answered this through a fleeting melody at Western City. A true general knows when to stop. The wise never let themselves become a thorn in the emperor's side. Help a king rise and you'll be rewarded. But once the empire is built, if you wish to survive, you must learn how to step back. What about you? Do you want to be Han Xin, killed for being too great? Or be Fan Li, living in peace after a glorious age? The answer lies in awareness. And sometimes a single silent melody is enough to change an entire life. If you value profound lessons from ancient wisdom, hit subscribe, like, and leave your reflections below. This channel will continue guiding you through legendary crossroads in history, so that each of us may learn. To live at the right time and step back at the right moment is the truest victory of all.